Yeah, you can show me if you want. ready to go. So if we can call to order the April 7th, 2022 Vision Zero Advisory Committee meeting. Margie, if you could please call roll to establish quorum.
Yes, ma'am. So at this time, I'm only calling the members present in person. If you can please state here when I call your name, and then please remember that the button on the base is your to turn it on and off. And when it's red, it means it's on. And then if you are an alternate on here on behalf of a representative, if you can please state so. Tracy Phelps.
Here.
Bruce Rosenzweig.
Here.
Craig Pinder.
Here.
Ted Goodenough. Joanna Peluso.
It's not going.
I think you're hitting it too quick. Yeah, it's on now. So at the top, Joanna. It's okay.
Here.
Joanne Scaria,
Here.
Fadi Nassar,
Here.
JC Berry, David Willock,
Here.
Jean Matthews,
Casey Prankin in for Jean Matthews.
Yash Nagal,
Here.
Michael Owens, Ryan Harding.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ryan
I'm not
Harding.
in the room. I'm sorry.
Yes, you're fine, Michael. I'll count your attendance in a minute.
Christian Santa here for Ryan Harding.
John Roach,
Here.
Larry Wallace,
Hay for Larry Wallace.
Brian Rusher,
Present.
Stephanie Thoburn.
Here.
We have a quorum in person, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I do have Michael Owens, and he is online, that he requested permission to participate remotely. He noted the school district is still experiencing staff shortages and his presence at the office is required.
Are there any members of the VZAC who have objections to allowing Michael to participate remotely? Seeing none, we approve your participation remotely.
Thank
And
you.
please note the attendance. Okay. Next item, motion to approve the minutes for March 3rd. Are there any changes to the minutes? John,
Just one clarification under 1F. Under the liaison reported indicated that I confirmed the upcoming panel would be hosted in person. I think it was confirmation that it was going to be held virtually as well as in person. So just for point of clarification.
Thank you. We'll make that correction, Madam Chair.
okay. Any other changes to the minutes? Do we have a motion on the minutes? Oh, okay.
Don't make the motion.
Okay, David,
Michael Owens, second.
second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Are approved. And the next item is general public comments. Instructions are provided for public comments are included in the agenda, and staff, do we have any general comments that have been received that we need to?
No general public comments.
Okay. Okay, so comments from the board. Does anybody have any comments? We'll start over here on this side. Anybody? Joanna?
I just want to say thank you to the TPA. I was invited by my sister initiative, Healthier Glades, to go out to the South Bay walk audit, where they did it around Rosenwald Elementary School. And it was a really great experience. And I know that the community members, it was very community member led and heavy. And they were really, really appreciative of the TPA staff and time to come out there, because they oftentimes feel like not a lot of people take the time to come out and spend time and learn about the issues in their community. And they've definitely identified walking and biking safety, especially for kids, as a priority. So I personally am really grateful, and I know I'm passing a message along from them as well, that they were grateful. So And I think it would be really there were some really amazing community leaders in that group as well. And I wonder if throughout the TPA's various committees, if there could be representation from someone from that group on one of the committees. Thanks.
Great. Is there any other comments? I just wanted to say thanks for filling in, Andrew. Since Alyssa resigned as our bike ped coordinator, we'll be calling you. All right. Anybody else? All right. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the liaison report given by Andrew.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll try to bring the positive energy that she brought. It's not going to last though, but just on that note, we do have the pedestrian bicycle coordinator position open. It's a lead planner position. Obviously, they're the liaison for here, and they also are the ones in charge of the TA program, which we're talking about today. And then also they do a lot of bike pedestrian advocacy throughout the county, and they work with both local partners in the state on designing roadways. So if you have anybody who's interested in that position, it's open. And then we also have the transit coordinator position, which is a lead planner position that's also open. And they're doing a lot of the working with Palm Tran, SFRTA, and they also handle our corridor studies. So if you have any people who are interested, you can send them to our website, and they'll be open until filled. So going through the liaison report, just have a few highlights that is also on the presentation. First is we hosted a mobility and economic development panel. It was on March 31st. It discussed mobility and economic development trends. It had a good turnout and was well received. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I suggest checking it out. Belle Glade also passed Vision Zero targets of 0 fatalities and serious injuries after TPA passed their resolution. And so we'd like to congratulate them on adopting that Vision Zero resolution in March 23rd. Next slide. Is that me? No, it is me. Okay. National Bike and Roll to School Day. It's going to be celebrated on May 4th to encourage local municipalities and schools to celebrate. You can get more information at walkbiketoschool.org. And then we're hosting another round of our Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7 multimodal corridor studies, a public workshop, and it's going to be held in person here at the TPA office on May 10th from 2 to 4 p.m. For more information, you can go to palmbeachtpa.org/Okie. So the update information is there. We're presenting the alternatives and the analysis on that at that workshop. And then lastly, we're hosting another Vision Zero virtual workshop on May 13th from 2 to 4 p.m. And you can register at palmbeachtpa.org/VZ workshop. We're going to try to have the Vision Zero network there as well as FHWA. It's going to be virtual because they couldn't make it out, and it's more expensive for them to come out and fly out. But it's going to be a great virtual workshop to just have the latest on Vision Zero and how to adopt it and implement it into your communities. And then next is multimodal project discretionary grants. There's a lot of FHWA grants out there. Some of the larger ones are combined this year, mega, infra, and rural grants, into this multimodal product discretionary grants. Notice of funding opportunities. The applications are due on May 23rd, and you get more information at transportation.gov/grants. And the next governing board meeting is going to be hosted on April 21st at 9 a.m., both in person and virtually. Thank you.
Okay. So now we start on our action items. The 2022 Transportation Alternatives Program Project Application Rankings, and Jason Price is going to present this item. Is he? I don't see Jason.
He's sick today, so I'll be presenting this item.
Okay.
I'm the TPA today mostly with Margie. Just give me a second to share my screen. Oh, it's already being shared. Okay. Actually, I want to share my own screen if that's okay, Amanda. If you could exit this one. One second. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'll be going through the applications that we received this year for the transportation alternatives. There was 4 applications total, and you'll see in the next few slides here that, and also available in the backup, that the requested funding is actually less than the amount we have available. So we're, most likely these will all be funded, and we'll have a little bit of extra money available. That typically goes to cost overruns and others, but we shortened this to just having it during a regular VZAC meeting. We've had them in the past in the afternoons, but since we've had these to 4 applications, we chose to have it during this meeting to shorten the amount of time for you all and for staff. I believe we also have some of the applicants available over virtually. So if you did have questions for applicants, we can address them to them. And then I'm just going to have one slide for each one, and I'm just going to run through this presentation for you all. So the Transportation Alternatives Program, it funds on off-road pedestrian bicycle facilities and safe routes to schools. It's around $3.3 million available right now of what we have. We actually anticipate that to go up quite a fair bit in the coming years here with the new legislation. But right now we're maxing projects at $1 million per project and with a minimum of $250,000. And it typically goes to here to TPA sidewalks, bike facilities, pedestrian bicycle signage and signals, lighting and safety improvements. And the scoring and how we score these is really related to our goals, objectives, and measures and targets in our long-range transportation plan. And so the scoring that you all adopt is supposed to be in line and consistent with how we're trying to move forward as a TPA and what we should prioritize. This year, we have 4 grant applicants: Palm Beach Gardens, Indian Trail Improvement District, Rural Palm Beach, and West Palm Beach. Just an update of where we're at with the schedule. So we had our submittals late February, early March, and now they've been being vetted by FDOT and the TPA. And we sent out initial notice to them about some follow-up information for them to receive. But right now, today, it's the VZAC project ranking. And then we'll get responses from them on some other vetting issues around April 11th. And there's going to be virtual field visits with FDOT and the TPA staff and the applicants. And then there'll be another round of vetting questions and follow-up from FDOT and the TPA. And then there'll be a final eligibility determination by May 27th. And then you all, with your draft rankings, you'll see it one more time in your list of priority projects. So the way we present it in the list of priority projects with our other funding programs, which are state road modifications, local initiatives, and there's transportation alternatives, that's where you'll see your ranking of the 4, along with all the other products in the previous years in that list. And then the final adoption is for July 21st. And then that is given to FDOT to create the new version of the work program for the following year. So here are the 4 product submittals. I re-ranked these just this morning. So it varies from what you had in your backup. Margie provided a printout of the new summary for you all today. But you can see the 4 in the TPA ranking and the amount requested. So it's Indian Trail Improvement District with the shared use pathways and sidewalk expansions, Palm Beach Gardens, Fairchild Avenue, sidewalks and buffer bike lanes. There's weight binding in Rural Palm Beach, and then there's traffic calming and bicycle improvements for West Palm Beach. And so the total available is around 3.3, and the total requested from that is about 3.1. So there is a little bit right now a surplus in funding there. I'm just going to go one slide for each just to have a brief summary. Again, if you have any questions, we can you can direct them to me, and we can also ask the applicants. The first one, Indian Trails Improvement District. This one is their higher scored one. It's actually 44 points. And really the higher scoring is because they're putting in a lot of shared use pathways, which score high in our TA scoring criteria. They're putting over two miles worth of shared use pathways. And they're also expanding some of the sidewalks to 8-foot pathways. Locations being Hamlin Boulevard, Great View, Citrus Grove as well. And I believe this is a similar request that they had last year for other roadways. The next one is Palm Beach Gardens buffered bike lanes and sidewalks on Fairchild Ave from Fairchild's Gardens Avenue to Campus Drive. It's going to install buffered bike lanes and also a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway. And it's Total request is closer to $1 million, 983,000. Next is Royal Palm Beach wayfinding. There's multiple wayfinding items in this. There's going to be shelters with bike racks, 23 kiosks, and then 75 wayfinding guide signs. Total request being 773,000. And I know the map there is hard to see, but it's throughout Royal Palm Beach. It's village wide. And then lastly, there's traffic calming and ADA improvements and bike improvements for West Palm Beach. And that's on 49th Street from Greenwood Ave to North Flagler Drive. So it's going to include sidewalks, ADA curb ramps, traffic calming speed humps, and then bicycle share rows. And this one scored the lowest out of the projects. It's a shorter segment. And then you typically, we don't really give points for bicycle share rows. They do have a lot of other items on there with sidewalk improvements and ADA curb ramps and speed humps. So they get points for that. But when you don't have a large amount of facility, you typically don't score very high in the TA program. And so this one, and also like I said, it's a shorter segment and the cost is $368,000. And once again, this is that summary of submittals. So it's the 4 products ranked in order from Indian Trail Improvement District, City of Palm Beach Gardens, Royal Palm Beach, and then West Palm Beach. And that's all I have for you all on that scoring summary. And so the staff recommendation is to obviously go in order of the TPA ranking, but leave it to you to discuss.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew. Are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair, I do not have any hand raised. I did want to note one thing. Michael, I forgot to, before we started the meeting, send you a copy of what Andrew said changed. I did email it to you because we did provide a printed copy in person for this scoring change that he noted. So that should be in your inbox. Thank you, but no public comments, Madam.
Yes, I have it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. Bruce.
Thank you. Yeah, I confess ignorance. Could you explain what wayfinding is?
Sure. And actually, I could probably bring up an example for you. But wayfinding is really about with the bicycle trails, it's going to provide like signage for how many miles until a nearest facility is a park or another trail system. So it's what you would see typically on that. There could also be wayfinding for that one's going to be for other types of facilities or destinations that the village is trying to promote, right? So you'll see possibly ones to other parks, or if it's a town hall, it could really be any type of facility. And I may have an example if you give me a minute to see what they're providing. But you can go on to other questions if you'd like.
Okay, Tracy, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I got quite a few. Are the applicants available in case needed?
Yes, they're all,
Okay,
yes, they're all online. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure before I said that they are all available.
the first one, Indian Trails. My research shows there's no right of way out there that they want to put the sidewalks in. So I assume it's all on some type of access easement. So I was just wondering what the wording in that easement says and whether they are allowed to actually put sidewalks without in those easements. The drainage out there looks to be horrible. So I don't know that adding more impervious area to the roadway that the existing drainage will be able to handle it. If they're widening the sidewalk on the inside, that's going to come in conflict pretty much with every driveway, mitered intersection, or culvert wall for every driveway. So that would mean the minor intersection or the driveway culvert would need to be redone. And I don't think that cost was probably put in their estimate. There's also on Great View, there appears, again, there
Sorry, Tracy, can you do me a favor and bring your mic closer? Because I think they're
Okay.
only catching every few words.
on
Thank you.
Great View road, there appears to be some environmental concerns, wetlands by widening the sidewalk there. So that was that one. Fairchild. There appears to be a lack of right of way on the east end to actually widening the road for a buffer and or put a sidewalk in. There are a lot of trees. If you start widening the road to put the bicycle buffer in, there's going to be a lot of trees along that stretch. It's going to have to be removed. That's usually a pretty controversial issue because I don't want a tree within the clear zone, even for a bicyclist. Don't want them falling off the edge of pavement and smacking their head up against a tree because there are clear zone requirements. And it appears, again, that there'll be drainage problems, and those problems would likely go on off the roadway right away into private property. So I have concerns about that one. No concerns on the village of Royal Beach or Royal Palm Beach. The West Palm Beach, the last one, just looks like a lot of the residents build off their yards all the way to the road, and with planters and other things. So putting a sidewalk in would tear a lot of that work that they've done out. So I would want to know that the residents have approved this project and have no problem with this project. There's also light poles and also trees and everything in the location where you think the sidewalk would go. So those are my questions. The drainage costs can get expensive if they're not taken into account, especially for the first one.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you want to go in order for the applicants. So if you want Indian Trail to address Tracy's comments first.
Yeah, if we could just start with the first item that you
Okay.
brought up, Tracy, and have them respond.
So I do have Indian Trail on the line that you can unmute on your end and then go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, can all of you hear me? This is Joe Capra with Captech Engineering.
Yes.
Okay, thank you first of all for hearing from us. We do appreciate the staff's recommendations and Tracy, good comments. We actually did receive a letter from the DOT on several of those, and we will be responding to that for the 11th. Okay, that's our deadline for those to respond to all those comments. So many of your comments are the same. So unfortunately, we kind of had some understanding a couple of things. So first thing I would like all of you to understand is Indian Trails is a 298 district. Basically, all our transportation items are paid for solely by our residents, okay? And basically, the first question Tracy talked about was right of way. Each one of these corridors has adequate right of way. They're 80-foot right of way existing, okay? But I should explain to you something. A lot of the roads in Indian Trails, basically the ownership from the lot goes all the way to the center of the road. But the district does own 40 feet either side of that for transportation improvements. And they have the right to put those in those locations. So one of the questions we did get from DOT was to provide those plats that show that, okay? We've done that before on prior applications. So certainly, Tracy, our intention is to put everything in the existing rights of way that we own or that we have the right to. We may not own them, but we have easements for them, okay? And they probably have a designation that our attorney could tell you, and we'll be happy to provide that to the DOT. But essentially run into this same comment on many of our improvements. But again, everything will be put into locations where we have the right for these transportation improvements. Again, we have a total of 80 feet out there on each one of these roads rights of ways, okay? I'm going to try to remember all the items, okay? First of all, the location of the paths. You are absolutely correct. Drainage is very important for Indian Trails Improvement District. Two things. First of all, we first of all, did a mobility plan that thank you all helped us pay for with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. And the improvements we are proposing here are part of that mobility plan that we approved and adopted back in December of 2020. Okay, so this is all part of a grand plan for transportation improvements throughout our district. Okay, and basically, typically these are also for the benefit of all our residents, basically for walking, getting from one destination to another. These paths are strategically placed so that we can get our residents and our users of these parks from one park to the next. So today, okay. So I just want you to know there's a madness here that we have. We try to basically make sure we can get not only vehicular traffic is one thing that happens out there, but we want to make sure we have our pedestrians, our bicyclists, as well as our equestrian users have the right to get from one park to the next. Okay. And so to answer your question, most of the reason why we widen the sidewalks in the past, we basically put them on the road, the right-of-way line, and we place them inwards, which you're right, there is a swell there. But if you note our application, it did include driveway crossings that we will have to improve upon. Like you mentioned, that some of those culverts will have to be adjusted. But unfortunately, the existing sidewalk, that's what's out there, 5-foot sidewalk, is usually right up against that right of way. Okay. So our only way of expanding it is into the right of way. We have included not only driveway improvements, culvert improvements, but we also have and proposing an improvement at some of the intersections, what we call bioswales. Okay. We want to try to enhance our stormwater system out there. And we've been doing that all along. The district is obviously conscious of making sure that our swale system works. As you probably know, in the plan, you'll see that we basically have a swale between the road and the sidewalk, the swale and the equestrian trail. Basically, they ultimately go to canal systems that we have throughout all of these areas, and they discharge into those canal systems and obviously flow through to our major control systems that go to the south. Okay, so there is a pretty much master stormwater program that we have for the district, and that's quite frankly a very important item that we have to comply with. So I believe our response on the 11th will show you how we do address everything that you've just mentioned about stormwater. The next thing, let's see, I talked about driveways, I've talked about right-of-ways. Great view right-of-way. You are right that on some of the outside areas, but in the right-of-way, they're pretty much cleared within the right-of-way already. And we know that there is a tight area in that section. So we will obviously we may have to make some adjustments to the drainage when we get into the final design, but we will account for that in our response on the 11th also. We do not intend to impact any wetlands with this work. There's no intention of doing that at all. We intend to stay within already what is a cleared right of way, and we will make adjustments to our drainage system to accommodate this. I don't know, Tracy, did I miss any of your comments? We are considering crosswalks, basically relative to existing. First of all these, with the exception of the first road on our list, which is Hamlin, which is a gravel road out there right now. We do already have a sidewalk on one side that will widen, and then a equestrian trail on the other side. Obviously, there's already an equestrian park on Hamlin, and that's one of the reasons we want to put this system in place. But the other ones are already paved roads. I wanted you to understand we have paved roads. Another item that we do work on with other funding that you guys have been providing relative to LI, we are considering a lot of traffic calming out there in the district. These roads are 40 miles per hour roadways. We want to keep the pedestrians away from, the vehicular traffic out there. So we're making a lot of improvements in both these areas, both pathways, but also traffic calming to kind of make it safe for our residents. I can answer anything else, Tracy, that I may have missed. I apologize. I didn't write it down.
No, you answered everything. I was just wanting to make sure that all those cost the driveway cost and other issues that might come up has been considered in the cost estimate, so there wouldn't be any major overruns or. And it sounds like you've considered everything I had questions about.
Thank you. Thank you. And like I said, we'll be responding on the 11th with specific write-up about some of these comments you made. They're very good comments. Thank you so much.
So Palm Beach Gardens applicant, unless Joanne wants to respond.
I would be happy to, but I think a lot of the questions are more engineering oriented. So if our engineering staff wants to answer the questions, that's fine. I'm happy to jump in as needed.
Okay, and Mike, I do see that you're on. I'm not sure if nobody else from Garden. So Mike, if you want to unmute so you can answer Tracy's questions for me.
You're gonna have to.
And Tracy, you might need to re-ask them so they're fresher.
The Palm Beach Gardens one was the trees that would be torn down, would have something, would either be, I think a lot of the trees would have to be removed because they're close to the edge of pavement now. So widening the road for anything is going to affect those trees. And I was worried about the drainage and the right of way on the east end of this corridor. Gets pretty narrow
Yeah, so
because the road's already wide at that end. So I'm not sure that you can fit everything in there that you want to with.
I can say that on the east side of the right of way, on the south side where we're proposing the sidewalk, that is already an existing.
There
driveway.
is,
So we'll only
yes.
be adding the bike lanes in that section. And we have very wide lanes in that area. So we think we can accommodate it within the 80-foot right of way.
Within what about the existing roadway? Because if you do widen the road, that's going to add. I just want to know where the extra drainage is going to go from that impervious pavement. Well, we don't want drainage going on to offsite.
They don't know about the construction on the north side.
And I don't want to get too technical, but these are just issues that I
Where's our camera?
ran into myself designing projects.
On Zoom. Click it. Click my name.
There it is.
Stand by. We're having technical
We
difficulties.
got a little bit of technical difficulties here. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, for some
All right.
reason, we can't get our
The
camera up.
camera's not.
Camera's not up. So in particular, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna actually take most of the area out of the median in there,
Okay.
the additional area. There's some residents along that side where we're gonna put the additional sidewalk over there. And as you can see where the tennis court is, that tennis court, we do have a small pinch point there, and we do have to remove some of the trees in that particular area and some of the other vegetation. But that's not going to be an issue. We've worked out that area. You can see as that road shifts there, that's sort of a little pinch point for us, but we'll be able to maneuver everything in there. As you can see, you got EC Theater to the south, you got the library to the north and the governmental center. And then obviously you got Palm Beach State College here. We just completed our first mobility improvements on Campus Drive, 12-foot sidewalks on the west and 7-foot sidewalks on the east. So this will tie into that, is, continue our mobility theme and continue to build on our mobility plan. But there will be some vegetation that has to be removed. That will be replaced in that area. The drainage has already been accounted for, and we can maneuver some of the drainage, and drainage won't be an issue at all on this project.
Okay.
Because we got an 80-foot right of way and we got no sidewalk on the north. So we've got a lot of area to maneuver in here.
Yeah.
Just a maybe a larger philosophical question about the program. You go through and apply for this project for this fiscal year, and then over the next 2 to 3 years, the city goes about doing design, which I think is what maybe Tracy has dealt with a little bit. So a lot of the issues with respect to easements, waterway drainage, permitting, and that type of work is yet to be determined, but maybe helpful to bring up at this time. Is that accurate?
Correct. And that's why we have the vetting from FDOT. So when they're going to the field, sometimes they go in the field, sometimes they do it virtually, but they also have their drainage people, everyone else from FDOT, it's a whole slew of people. And they're trying to get out ahead of that. So if these are going to be issues,
Right.
they want to make note of them now.
Right. And the other requirement, nobody or no application to your knowledge at this point has gone around the public input process that's been required by the TPA for these applications, correct? They've all submitted the requirements with respect to public input.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I just, yeah, I don't want to drainage design anything. I just want to make sure those costs or that's being thought of now, so costs don't skyrocket and a project gets stopped and right in the middle because something was not designed for or thought of. So
So
definitely.
could this Todd Engel, city engineer again, just one more thing. These are hard to do because you're doing a conceptual, but this is our road. We built it. We understand the drainage of it, and we do a review to make sure it is buildable. So in my opinion, it is buildable, and the drainage has already been thought of, and the Gardens is committed to make this work.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yep.
So I had a couple questions.
And Tracy, if you're done, if you can put your tent card and then, oh, okay.
Fadi, I think, Fadi? Go ahead, Fadi. I thought you put your card down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, my comment is not related to this particular project. It just, I was a bit surprised that there's only 4 who presented, 4 applicants, and the total amount requested is less than the amount available. And I'm wondering if, along the line what we spoke before, if TPA shouldn't do more to help communities, maybe, especially those, maybe lower income communities, to present projects like this and have some program to assist them in the technical analysis and maybe initial review. And I know also the county probably will be more than happy to participate in that, just to provide a larger pool of project, especially for underserved communities. Thank you.
Mind if I respond on that?
Go ahead.
It's a great point, Patty. I'm not sure if he was hinting at having the county administer projects, but we do. I think it's a great point that you mentioned about encouraging that and trying to guide some communities on potential projects. Obviously, we're doing these walk bike audits, and there's potentials there, and we help with mobility studies. Some of the sticking points sometimes for these smaller communities is being an administrative agency. And so really the only 2 options we have for that are, well, the one is FDOT, which can take some time. It's usually going to be further out in the work program because of that. And then the other option sometimes is the county assisting with administering the project. So it's really, I think the TPA can help with that upfront concept and helping these communities. And then we'd have to figure out how to get it administered. But it's a very good point.
Okay. On that note, what happens with the remaining money that goes unused?
Yep. So it's a pretty small amount. Well, what you see there, it looks like a small amount. It's in the 100,000s range, right? So a lot of that would go, typically with that small amount, it's most likely it's going to be going towards like other projects that may have a cost overrun that are currently in the TA program or even the LI program, if it's an eligible thing. So what we look at first is other eligible projects that may need the funding, whether it's a cost overrun or if we can bring down the share of what the locals are paying for. Another kicker on that is the numbers aren't released yet for TA, but we are expecting a large increase in TA funding. So next year you may see not 3 million to allocate, but 5 to 6 million potentially. So we'll have, and we might need to find places for products that you've already prioritized. There might be funding available in earlier years that we're gonna have to scramble to try to prioritize on to accelerate. So, but the short answer is typically for that amount of money, it'll go to another project and try to get everything programmed and implemented to move forward for cost overruns. And then after that, if there's any money available, if it's large enough, we'll try to accelerate other products in the program.
Okay. You mentioned staff change in the scoring that you redid this morning, where the Gardens was the top ranking, and now Indian Trails Improvement District has gotten an additional 10 points. Could you just look at that? And I'd be curious as to why the 10 additional points were included on the matrix.
Yes, give me 1 second. I'll pull up the Excel, and then I'll explain it for you verbally as well. 1 second. So regarding the ITID project, my original Excel here, unfortunately, the formula wasn't capturing the top row, which is where the shared use pathways were. And they scored 13 points in the shared use pathways, which is a big amount. We cap the amount of bicycle facilities at 10 points, as well as pedestrian facilities. So they get 10 points total for that. And that's where that 10 points came from. So it jumped from originally 34 to 44. The other ones were not impacted by that row because they didn't have shared use pathways. So there's no additional points for that. But it was the one because our formula didn't capture that top row. And that's a mistake on me.
Just curious if the CAC or the technical advisory committees, I know you said it was this morning, but wondering if you would send that out to them just in case there was other comments.
The TA only goes to you all for this
okay.
round. Yep. The only time they're going to see this list is after you all provide your recommendations, they'll see it in the list of priority projects. So they'll see these at the bottom of the list of priority projects.
Okay. Well, that's good. So everybody get ready because next year we're going to have double the amount of funding. So next year we probably will be having an afternoon meeting for those of you who, and it's usually a pretty long process, and we try to have fun. So John.
With that comment in mind, with regards to the increase in funding and the hope that we do get a significant number of projects, and to Fadi's comment about the lack of projects that have been submitted this time, I think a lot of it is there's a lot of resources that have to be allocated towards even determining the project, putting together the application, providing the materials and so forth. So, I think if there's some assistance to these municipalities or jurisdictions that don't necessarily have those resources to invest, to even make the application for the money, yet alone management of the project and so forth, I think that would be beneficial in increasing the number of potential projects that would be submitted. So just something to consider as to where that assistance can be best provided, not only in implementation, but maybe potentially application. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I do see, Tracy, did you have additional questions?
Okay, Tracy.
Is
And
there
then Brian.
anything in the scoring that takes into account the first one that's first now is right? There's a school right in the area. When I saw that there's a school, and actually just Great View Drive, just on the north end of that section, there's a school zone there. So I was wondering if I think walkways, sidewalks, things like that should definitely be scored higher if there's an elementary school or middle school in the area to provide, since we're really at Vision Zero and safety for school kids, very important.
You all adopted scoring that has project is within 2 miles of a school and within its school attendance boundary, and you provide 5 points if it's within that. So all of them had met those criteria. So they all got 5 points for that.
Okay. Brian.
Just kind of also talking about funding and thinking about what the city's programming this year and some of the ask. We're using the federal government programs pretty extensively this year too. So the TPA's existing programs are also competing, I think, a little bit with resources that are now out and about. I know we're going after at least 2 federal grants this year for infrastructure in Delray for these type of programs. So TPA is maybe competing with those just a little bit. Similarly for, I can envision that happening for the next, thank you, few years as more money comes down the pipeline, but any money for planning studies, especially for Vision Zero action plans, would be appreciated as we're going for a grant for that. One comment I thought, as I'm looking at the scoring in particular for the last 2 categories, Royal Palm Beach is simply installing bicycle pedestrian wayfinding, whereas West Palm Beach really is doing a bicycle boulevard treatment, or otherwise referred to as a neighborhood type greenway. I would put it out to the committee that the installation of infrastructure probably should always be prioritized over the installation of kind of the accessory type facilities. So wayfinding would be one of them. Wayfinding is great to have, but the thing that will move the needle on biking and walking commute rates and transportation rates are actual infrastructure. So I was just interested that, and I'm not proposing rescoring because the scores I think are marginally different. It makes no difference because there's still available funding, but the installation of infrastructure should always be prioritized. And it's something to keep in mind, I think, for next year as we move forward into getting more projects on the ground.
Andrew, do you want to follow up with anything before we
Sure.
motion?
Sure, I do have one final thing for you. It's not a great look, Soil Royal Palm Beach. They don't have they didn't submit a full design of their kiosks and all that. And so I just wanted to show you real quick in their typical section. But Bruce is just left. That's okay, but I'll show you anyway.
While you bring it up, it's very hard to do wayfinding. It's a very sensitive issue with the community. We're going through some for our downtown. So concepts are always being changed.
So they have just a basic one design. So they'll have maps of their village, and it's going to be near their sidewalks. And then they'll do the same thing for smaller types of signage. The example they have is, pointing to the mileage away from a recreational center. And then also in their typical section, they provided an example of what or where it will be located for a type of shelter. And that's all I had for you. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any more cards up. Do we have a motion on the 2022 Transportation Alternatives Program project rankings?
Brian, move to adopt as presented.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Tracy, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so the next item is an informational item on Brightline. And
Yes, we have Ali Soul will be virtual.
okay, Brightline.
Hi, can you see me and hear me? Good morning.
Great. Yes.
Well, good morning. My name is Ali Soul. I'm the Vice President of Community Relations at Brightline. Thank you for inviting us to participate and to provide an update today. Next slide. So as a friendly reminder, Brightline is the only privately owned and operated intercity express rail service in the United States. I'm sure most of you know that we operate our phase 1 system in South Florida. We have our second project that will connect Southern California with Las Vegas under development. So we look forward to hopefully moving that forward soon. And there are other corridors around the nation that we believe would be strong contenders for what we think is the goal of connecting key city pairs that are too long to drive and too short to fly. Next slide. So Brightline has done a heck of a lot over the past couple of months. We were temporarily suspended during COVID for about 18 months, but we relaunched service in November and we're off to a great start. We hired about 200 new teammates. We launched Brightline Plus, which is our new door-to-door mobility service. We continued with construction of our additional 2 inline stations in Aventura and Boca Raton. And we also continue to accelerate our construction between West Palm Beach and Orlando. To date, the Orlando extension is nearly 75% complete. There have been 5.2 million man hours worked, and each day there are more than 1,300 people on the ground. Next slide. For those of you who haven't been on Brightline, I thought it was important to give an overview on where our stations are located. Our downtown Miami station connects to Metro Rail, Metro Mover. Ultimately, it will connect with Tri-Rail. It's about a 7-minute walk to the FTX Arena. It is within walking distance of the courthouses and the county facility. Our station in Orlando is at the airport. It is part of the intermodal terminal facility, which if you've been to the Miami intermodal facility at the Miami airport, they're very similar. They will ultimately have additional transportation connections. It's connected to the North Terminal via an automated people mover, and the ITF at the Orlando airport is going to be the hub of their new South Terminal, which will expand the airport's capacity by about 120 gates. And that facility exists. Brightline is in the process of building out its station. And then we have our stations in Aventura. That station is being constructed. It is across the street from the mall, although not easy to access. So the ultimate vision for the project and what we're working on is to build a pedestrian overpass that will connect the station directly with the Aventura Mall, and obviously to the east side. Our station in Fort Lauderdale is just north of Broward Boulevard. Our station in Boca is across from Meister Park. And in West Palm Beach, we're located to the south of, to the north of the square and to the south of Clematis Street. Next slide now. Thank you. Brightline Plus is our new door-to-door service powered by our app and supported by a fleet of Brightline branded vehicles. We have shared rides and Tesla private rides that take you within a 5-mile radius of our station. We also have Circuit, which is the electric golf cart that takes you within a mile of our station. And in West Palm Beach, we just launched our bike share program, Bright Bikes, which we're very excited to bring to downtown West Palm Beach. Next slide. So I mentioned phase 2, we are on track to Orlando. This is just a snapshot of some of the construction progress and milestones that we've made. I do have a video to show, it's on the next slide. And that video actually only describes or goes into detail about the portion of our project between this, that's along the State Road 528 right-of-way between Cocoa and the airport. And it really is incredible to see how massive and what an undertaking the construction of this project is. So next slide, and will you please play the video? Next slide. And so this project is really full of innovations, and quite frankly, it has to be. A project of this magnitude does not get constructed without the partnerships from local agencies. This corridor, especially for the Brightline project, goes through 8 counties and more than 50 cities. We are constructing along the right-of-way where freight traffic continues to operate. And then there's obviously there's interstate highway systems. And then we also are working through airport property, which is pretty significant. But I always like to remind people about what the phase 2 scope of work is. So from West Palm Beach to Cocoa, we are double tracking the Florida East Coast Railway Brightline corridor, similar to what we did for our phase 1 project. All crossings will be upgraded to meet the standards set by the Federal Railroad Administration and the Florida Department of Transportation. All crossings on our corridor have gates, bells, whistles, signage, pavement markings. They have all of the infrastructure that is required to warn motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists that a train is approaching. Where we will exceed 79 miles per hour, we are installing the FRA calls sealed corridor. This specifically refers to the gates at the crossings, not the areas in between. So in areas where we go higher than 79 miles per hour, we'll have 4-quadrant gates or non-traversable medians in place. We're also installing positive train control. This is a federal mandate. We already have it operational in our system between Miami and West Palm Beach. Vehicle presence detection, and then we are either replacing or rehabilitating, the many bridges, some over navigable waterways, some not. So we have 3 bridges over navigable waterways. Next slide. I just tried to change it myself and realized I couldn't, including the Loxahatchee River Bridge. So specifically for Palm Beach County, 88% of the crossings are complete, 23 of 26 of the 3 remaining. We expect them to be completed in the second half of this year. That schedule is obviously subject to change, but our construction team gives at least 2 weeks notice on the crossing improvements. So obviously motorists, Palm Tran, others who are traversing in that area can make sure that they can adjust their route as needed. And then I mentioned the Loxahatchee River. So the Loxahatchee River is in Jupiter and Tequesta. That rehabilitation of the Bascule Bridge will begin on April 10th on Sunday. Today, that structure is a single track. The structure is a double track, but only has 1 track as part of it. As part of the project, we will add that second track to the bridge, and then we will also increase the vertical clearance of 1 span to 14 inches. Doing that in coordination with the Jupiter Inlet District, that will provide for additional clearance for more boats to be able to go under the bridge when it's in the down position. We do have a text message system that we launched that allows mariners to opt in and receive updates as to when the bridge will be open and how the construction impacts are going. Next slide, please. So I obviously can't end any presentation or not do a presentation and talk about what Brightline believes is our most important priority, which is the safety of our guests, the safety of the communities in which we operate, the safety of our teammates. All of them are paramount to us. And so we look at safety in a 3-prong approach. And we really have been trying new and innovative means to continue to get the safety message out there, and frankly, to get people to pay attention and to understand how to be safe around active railroad tracks. In the engineering bucket, for example, we installed 2 red light cameras in North Miami. Brightline is not a law enforcement agency, so we worked closely with the Florida East Coast Railway Police to send warning letters to motorists who either went around the gates or stopped on the tracks. In the 3 or 4 months that we had those red light cameras up, we issued more than 900 warning letters. And some of those warning letters went to the same person or the same vehicle more than once. As a result of that, we were able to determine that there's obviously a problem in that area. And we went to local law enforcement and asked them to help us step up the outreach and make sure that people understood that what they're doing is breaking the law, and it's very dangerous for them and for those around them. We're also partnering with the Florida Department of Transportation to go after a RAISE grant. That is a new grant program that's available in this upcoming cycle. Applications are due in April. This would be a $45 million scope that would encompass additional safety enhancements from Miami-Dade to Brevard counties. It would include additional corridor intrusion methods, fencing, landscaping, delineators along the corridor at the crossings, to show people and to make sure people know that turning onto the tracks, that's not where they're supposed to be, in addition to additional signage along the corridor in key places. In addition, we have local law enforcement that continues to step up. For example, Lake Worth, the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office in Lake Worth actually did an operation for, I think it was about a week, maybe 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, they enforced, around the railroad crossings, and they issued more than 200 citations, warning people and letting them know that the things that they were doing were dangerous and illegal. In addition, we have a very comprehensive safety outreach program that's available in English, Spanish, Creole, and Portuguese. And mental health, we believe, is a key item that we support. Obviously, Brightline is not a mental health provider, but we work closely with 211 and other mental health resources to make sure that people understand that there are resources in the community that they can turn to, and that in mental health wellness is important. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Do we have any public comment on this item, Margie?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. So let's start with John.
Hi, good morning, Ally. Thank you for your presentation. I believe it's been brought up in some of the other updates that you've done in committee meetings and so forth, but I think one of the concerns with regards to the crossings here in downtown, while the facilities are there, all the gates are there, so forth, is we have the issue where we have the triple track, which created a substantially wider crossing. And the problem is myself included, is that by the time the signal starts and the gates start going down, there's not sufficient time to actually make it to the other side of the crossing before the second gate is coming down. So you kind of get stuck between the gates. And I mean, say myself included, so I can't imagine for an elderly or someone who's disabled or something like that, being able to get outside the crossing before the second set of gates come down. So, I don't know if the length of time is dependent upon the width of the crossing, or if it's just purely, the speed of the train or what have you. So it's something that I would definitely encourage. And I'm not saying it's just a Brightline issue, because obviously the freight trains and so forth, but it is a concern in those heavy pedestrian environments.
Well, that question actually came up yesterday, and I got with my technical team, and Margie, I will be sending out this answer. So if you can help me circulate it to the other, the Citizens Advisory Group and the technical group, and then those. But essentially, the short answer is for Clematis, the Clematis Street is set for about 42 seconds of warning time, plus 15 seconds of advanced preemption, whereas a single track that was before Brightline came in was for 30 seconds. So that 42 seconds takes into account the additional distance. And our team has actually gone out and looked at the crossing. So the crossing is working as designed, and it's in compliance with standard practices throughout the corridor and with FRA regulations. I will continue to take that back to the team, but I do want people to know that we obviously have heard the questions on the crossing, and it has been studied and looked at and made sure that it is working properly. But I will get a succinct answer for you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, say it may be meeting, all the requirements. It's just, from a practicality and, actually walking the crossing many times myself, I found myself getting stuck in there. And I mean, you potentially have to duck under the second set of gates to complete the crossing. And, not everyone has the capability to do that. So yeah, if you can continue to look into it, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to note for you, Ally, that I will share that information when you send it over for
Thank
the
you.
other committees. You're welcome.
Just on that, John and Ally, I'm just wondering if there's any coordination with the city of West Palm on the timing, if this is I mean, I can only imagine, driving into the downtown today, it's because there's so much traffic and people are queuing and sometimes you can't move. So I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity for Brightline and this, the traffic folks from the city of West Palm to coordinate?
Well, the biggest concern is, I don't think it's been so much from a vehicular standpoint. The biggest concern that I'm expressing and has been expressed a number of times is pedestrians. Being able to make the crossing as a pedestrian from the time that the signal starts, notifying you that the crossing is going to close, to make it across that triple track in time before the second gate comes down. As a pedestrian walking from our city garage to City Hall, we make that crossing multiple times a day. You get stuck in between there. I like to think I'm an able-bodied, capable, to make that crossing, but I've found myself stuck. I can't imagine someone who's in a wheelchair or using a walker or what have you, and then may not be able to duck underneath the second gate if necessary.
Again, I will take it back to the team. On your question on the queuing, I think that brings up an important, an important distinction that, it is illegal to stop on the railroad tracks. And we need to enforce the mindset that individuals who are in traffic should not be pulling up and anticipating that traffic is going to continue moving and they will be able to clear the crossing, right? That is how these incidents happen. People are not paying attention. They find out that they're stopped on the tracks. There's someone in front of them. The gates go down. They have nowhere to go, right? And that is a very dangerous, it can be a deadly scenario. And so we need to continue to reinforce to people that the only safe place to stop is outside of the gates, right? That is the law. That is what the Florida statute states. And that's what we've been trying to work with law enforcement on, is making sure that they're out there reminding people what they're doing, because you're exactly right. People can get stuck. That's how, if you can try to reverse or move and the front of your car gets hit, but you're still getting hit, and there's still the potential for you to be hurt and for those around you to be hurt. And so from a queuing perspective, we need to make sure that people are not queuing on the railroad tracks, period.
Mr. Good Enough. You're getting there.
I found it.
Good.
Okay. Good morning, Ally. A great presentation. I just have two comments and a question. I'll go with the question first. On the plus door to door, is there an additional cost to that? And is it based on distance from door to door? My two comments, I'm, among other things, the event coordinator for the guide dog handlers of the Palm Beaches. And we took 8 teams on Brightline down to Miami from West Palm and back. And everybody was extremely courteous, very helpful in helping a bunch of blind folk get to where they needed to be. And so I offer my appreciation for that. On the video that you showed, without audio description, anyone on a cell phone has no idea what you showed. And anyone with a visual impairment is in the same boat. So I would recommend that you look into audio description for any videos that you're going to do at a presentation or put on your website so that everyone has access to them.
I will take that back to the team. I appreciate your comment on our teammates in the station. They are the best. They are trained, to be focused on the guest experience and to make sure that all guests are having a great time. And we actually do partner with organizations or with groups that focus on individuals with the disabilities that might not have been on a train before or want to experience it for the first time. So it is something that we try to incorporate, from a community partnership standpoint. As for Brightline Plus, we are going to start charging for Brightline Plus. The private rides will be they're $10 one way. It's $10 no matter where you go within that 5-mile radius. We also have the shared rides and then the golf carts. The golf carts will remain free, but I expect over the next couple of weeks that we will really announce that pricing structure and provide more information on our website and in the mobile app.
Thank you very much for your time and responses.
Great.
Thank you.
So Brian is next.
Hi, Ali. Thank you for coming and presenting on behalf of Brightline today. We're excited for you all to go after a RAISE grant. How can we get more information about what areas of improvement and communities that you're seeking to improve fencing and landscaping along? Is that something you'd be willing to share?
So it would be something that we'll be working with cities with. When and if the grant is approved and allocated, in going through this process, as Brightline has worked with communities to get multiple grants, just because the scope you put in doesn't mean that that's the scope that ultimately is approved by the Federal Railroad Administration. You can also put in a request for X amount of dollars and they give you X minus X, and you don't end up, and then you have to change the project scope. So I think it's a little premature, from a wide public standpoint to talk, because if we're not able to fulfill that, right, based on the grants, but we would definitely, if the grant is awarded, we would be happy to come back and present an update to the board and to make sure that everybody is aware about the improvements that we're going to do. I will say, Brian, that we did do a pilot corridor intrusion project in South Palm Beach County. Delray Beach, Boynton Beach, and Lantana were part of that. If you've driven along the corridor in certain areas, you might have seen that, where we installed fencing and Florida native landscaping in certain key areas to prevent intrusion. And since we've installed that landscaping, we haven't had really any incidents in those areas. Fencing doesn't work everywhere. Especially we've seen in downtown Delray, they installed that very nice decorative fence. And, several weeks after it was installed several years ago, it was damaged. And then the city had to come back and fix it. So we really do look at it from a holistic approach as to what is the best means of resistance in that area.
Right. Thank you. I know that sometimes I guess this can feel like a game of whack-a-mole with where you install landscaping and fencing to try to, improve the safety along the corridor. The only thing I would venture to say is that, if there's any evaluation, you have your, engineering, education, and enforcement. If there's an evaluation component that you could add to it, that would help identify some of the systemic type issues that are facing it, might strengthen the grant, and the cities might be able to be a partner in that moving forward. So thank you.
Appreciate those comments. I will say that the grant, we are working right based on data, right, of incidents where we know have occurred, where our crews see stuff happening, where our engineering team goes out and looks at certain instances. So all of that is taken into consideration with the proposed improvements and then evaluated by the Federal Railroad Administration.
There's your 4th E. There you go.
Great. David, do you have comments, questions?
Yeah. Good morning, Ali. I thought it was a great presentation. I just had a question about the quiet zones. The news around here loves to focus on fatalities, and they love to have those stories on. They also have stories about revoking the quiet zone. I haven't heard any other discussion other than on the news. Is this factual, or are they just making this up?
Well, I think that you just said the most important word, which is facts, right? We have to operate from a place of facts. So taking even a step back, quiet zones are a federal process that public authorities must apply for. The railroad has no part in the application, or if the quiet zone ceases to exist, there is a federal process that's outlined where you have to implement supplemental safety measures, run a calculator to make sure that that risk is lowered, because you're taking away another safety improvement, which is the horn. And at that point, the FRA can say, this meets the threshold that's required for the quiet zones, they are approved. The Federal Railroad Administration is very aware of what is happening in South Florida, and they hosted in the past 8 months 2 workshops in South Florida to address the incidents that we are facing. And I think the message that came from it, and Valerie from the TPA was there and represented the TPA. Todd Van Lauren attended as well. Is that this is a community problem, which is why we need cities to help get education out. We need law enforcement to help address the problem and make sure people know what they're doing is illegal. And the FRA did talk a little bit about quiet zones. They have the ability to rescind them if something is occurring. Brightline does not. They did not in that meeting talk about that being an imminent action, but they do want our region to step up to the plate and do everything that we can do to try to lower the amount of incidents that we're having. I will add one more.
It's up to the federal government then.
Yes, and I will add one more thing, David, is that the FRA actually has come down several times. The city of West Palm Beach hosted a quiet zone workshop in their, bottom floor conference room. And then they did field diagnostics for the phase 2 segment to determine, what infrastructure is there, what infrastructure is needed for quiet zones, and to help cities with this. So Kim Delaney at the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council is leading that effort on behalf of the Palm Beach TPA. But the FRA is down here working with local governments in the phase 2 segment about how they can achieve the quiet zones if they wish to apply.
Great. That answers the question. Thank you.
All right. So Tracy, I see your card up.
That'll be interesting when you respond to John's comments. What the walking speed that they used to calculate the time for the gates are from where the gates are going down. I know the railroads have their way of doing things, and they were here first, so they rule. So they could be using to come up. I think you said 42 seconds. They could be using a walking speed of a normal, like 4 feet per second, whereas down here, South Florida, when we set flashing don't walk times, we use 3.5 seconds and sometimes even 3 seconds, 3 feet per second, because of the older population and the slower walking speeds. So I just, any response, I would be interested what the walking speed that they used in their calculations for the time that the gates go down. Because it really does sound like 42 seconds is a lot of time, but John looks like a very healthy man. So if he's not making it across in time, something doesn't seem to be working right.
Again, I'll definitely take this back to the team.
Okay. Fadi, do you have comments or questions?
Thanks, Ali. Great presentation, and I'm really happy to be in a county served by Brightline. Hopefully, in the future, you can take it to Orlando. In fact, my comment is probably more for West Palm Beach, for John, than for you. I know you mentioned you have concern with pedestrian at crosswalk, and of course, all of us, we do. But I think West Palm Beach should also be concerned about traffic and the impact on traffic. I know today it took me probably 4 times more driving this mile than coming from the office. The same thing happened last month. I don't know how it's going to be in the future. So I would appreciate West Palm Beach in coordination with TPA will, consider also traffic when you plan for Okeechobee or any parallel corridor, because this is your lifeline. I mean, this is your artery bringing traffic to your downtown area. And I hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
And John, do you have another?
Yeah, just one question for Ally. With regards to the Brightline Plus, does that 5 mile radius, does that encompass all the airports that are near the various stations? For example, the Fort Lauderdale Airport, Miami, West Palm, so forth?
So we will be announcing soon as well that, and we actually currently offer it, but we do offer shuttle service to the airport from the Brightline station, not from the airport to the Brightline station for Miami and Fort Lauderdale. We're potentially going to be doing something different for the PBI, but today it is for Miami and Fort Lauderdale. I will say, though, that the Miami station also connects directly to the airport via the Metro Rail Orange line. So that is also an easy transport.
David, do you have another comment? Okay. Ally, I was glad to hear, actually, my question was the continuing time frame for Brightline Plus, because I've used it, the free service, it's great. And I didn't want it to end. So I think charging is a really good next step because it was very convenient. It worked really well. So good to hear that. And
I'll take that back to the team. We like to hear good feedback on Brightline Plus. Thank you, Chair.
yes. Oh, and then, Michael Owens is on the line. Thank you, Margie. He's got a comment as well.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I was able to actually get on Brightline, I think January of 2020, right before all hell broke loose. And we took it from West Palm down to Miami, and it was fun. It was really fun. I think they were offering some sort of, discounted ride. So we took the whole family and we had a great time. I'm curious about the extension to Orlando, and forgive me if I overlook something, but will you just have a one station in Orlando, or you have a couple? I would assume you'd have something south of Orlando as well as Orlando proper.
Our stations will be Miami. Our current announced stations will be Miami, Aventura, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, West Palm Beach, and then Orlando. We're focused obviously on completing the Orlando segment, getting our phase 1 inline stations finished construction and operational. And then we will focus our efforts on additional expansion opportunities. We committed to the Treasure Coast to develop a station in either Martin or St. Lucie counties within 5 years of opening operations to Orlando. Brevard County is very interested in a station location there. TPO did a study that indicated that Cocoa, they believe that Cocoa is the best place for a station. And we're also looking at Disney Springs and then working with the Florida Department of Transportation and the Central Florida community about an ultimate connection to Tampa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. I think that's all the comments. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing Brightline to the East Coast of Florida. We desperately need it. We used to have transit when Flagler envisioned it 100 years ago. And by the way, I hope you can get the bridge by my house across the Loxahatchee River done quickly, because I watch it and hear the pilings being driven on Sunday, and hope that goes efficiently. And thank you again. I appreciate it all.
Thank you very much.
Do we have anything else before we move on? Everybody's good? Okay, so then our next item is the long-range transportation plan update, and Connor is going to present to us. He's the TPA LRTP coordinator. Thanks, Connor.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
I'm Connor Campabasso with the Palm Beach TPA, and today I'm going to be going over a quick update, more of an overview of the LRTP process and where we're at. We're getting into what we call the LRTP season, and this is where you're going to be seeing probably a lot more of me as we go through the LRTP and planning process over the next couple years. But I did want to start off with talking about our core products as a whole. So we have three major core products, first of which is the UPWP, or the Unified Planning Work Program. And you may be familiar with this. You just saw this, I believe, last month, at least a draft of it, and you'll be seeing it again for adoption soon. But this is our financial planning document, and this takes place over the course, it's a 2-year focus time period, and that's updated every 2 years. Next, we have the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a 5-year plan. And this includes all of our funded and prioritized projects. So anything that we fund through the TPA is included in that document. And that, again, goes out for 5 years, and that's updated annually. And then finally, we have our LRTP, which is our long-range transportation plan. And this is required to be a 20-year planning horizon, so a 20-year plan, updated every 5 years. However, due to a variety of different factors, we actually do an additional 5 years on top of that, leading us to a 25-year plan, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So what is an LRTP? Well, it maps out the future state and federal transportation investments. It also serves as the foundation for the development of that TIP, that Transportation Improvement Program. It reflects the region's goals through project prioritization, and also financial components guide how the plan can be implemented. Now, we did just go through this process not too long ago. So back in 2019, we adopted the 2045 plan. And as it is noted, it is a 25-year plan, so it brought us to the horizon year of 2045. In that plan, it defined the priority pedestrian and bicyclist corridors. It also established the 561 transit plan, as well as performance measures and targets, and then finally outlined all of the funding programs for the TPA. So this is guided by several documents, one of the most important of which is Title 23 of the Code of Federal Regulations. This sets forth several guidances of what an LRTP must have. So like I mentioned, it's a minimum of 20 years with 5-year updates. It includes the development of an integrated multimodal system, includes operation and management strategies, congestion management processes, assessment of capital investments, as well as transportation and transit enhancement activities, environmental mitigation activities, and then finally that financial plan that I was talking about earlier. Also, there's another document. It's the FHWA's planning emphasis areas. They just did an update in 2021. And this now includes tracking of climate crises, equity and justice 40, complete streets efforts, public involvement strategies, as well as coordination between the DoD as well as the Federal Land Management Agency. It also includes planning and environmental linkages, as well as data and transportation planning. So that brings us to the document itself. So for 2050, we want to answer a variety of different questions, including what will 2050 populations, employment, and travel look like? What our vision and how we will measure performance, what our needs and priorities are for the region, as well as what do we want travel to look like, how we'll pay for it, and finally, how we are going to implement it. So there's a lot of stuff to be done, and this is just the beginning. So you'll, again, be seeing a lot of presentations from me. Right now, we're in the procurement phase. So we are still working on the scoping effort. We're expecting that to be done in summer of 2022, and you'll be seeing a few presentations on that as well as an action item that will be brought to you all. After which, we will go into advertisement. So that will be in fall 2022, and then selection of the consultants in winter 2022, and then the start of the contracts, which will also take place in winter 2022. Potentially bleeding into the new year of January 2023. Long-term goals, however, you'll be seeing a couple other items brought to you as well. So in summer of 2023, you'll see the goals, objectives, and measures. In spring 2024, the cost feasible plan. And then finally, in winter 2024, we're hoping to wrap this up and you'll be voting on the document itself. Now, I did mention earlier that we do a 25-year plan. One of the major reasons is we also do a regional transportation plan. So that's the RTP, and that's shared between us, Broward, as well as Miami-Dade. They all operate on 25-year LRTPs as well, and thus the RTP itself is a 25-year planning horizon, and they are done simultaneously. So right now, we just wrapped up the scoping effort for the RTP, and we're moving into procurement. Miami-Dade's going to be handling that. And then in the end of 2022, we'll be wrapping up procurement similar to the LRTP, and then moving forward with the document planning process. And that is all I have for you today. Again, this was just a general introduction to the LRTP. Like I mentioned, you're going to be seeing a lot of me giving presentations about the process moving forward. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you have. Thanks.
Margie, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, so anybody have any comments or questions? Bruce?
I don't know why it caught my attention, but there was coordination with the Department of Defense.
Mhm.
Could you give an example of what?
So
entail?
there's strategic highways throughout our region, and really that coordination with the DoD is involved with maintaining those strategic corridors, things like I-95, making sure that military operations can still operate on those different corridors. That's my understanding. It could be a little bit more detailed than that, but we're going to be looking into that a little bit more as we go forward.
John?
Thanks, Connor. Just one question. As part of the scope, is it going to include going back and kind of evaluating how well we did in preparing previous plans? You know, were we close? Were we really far off? I mean, obviously 25 years is a long time, you know, to anticipate what's going to happen within there.
Absolutely.
But obviously any lessons learned that we can have by evaluating the past plans, I think would be beneficial in predicting.
Yep. So actually currently in our draft scope, we do have some of that review included. We're still trying to figure out to what degree. There was a question that was brought up yesterday. Should we be looking at the model results of 2025? And I think that might be a little bit more detailed. So we're trying to find a nice balance. We don't want to obviously spend all of our finances reviewing old plans. We want to look forward, but we are going to be doing some of that document, at least review of older plans and seeing how we can improve upon previous LRTPs.
Yeah, and not just from a modeling standpoint, but, you know, anticipating what the goals and objectives and so forth are going to be. How well were we at, you know, achieving, you know, those goals that were in past plans, and how can we learn from that, you know, to make sure we're more successful in achieving them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else? One question I had, as we move forward with population counts and demographics, given the great migration and the impacts it's had on our region, which has been pretty substantial. We've been undercounted, given the census timing and the pandemic. So just making sure we follow back through with other methods in order to capture that, not just Bieber, but perhaps driver's licenses, things like that, we could probably capture to ensure we get correct counts, because I know for Jupiter, we were definitely undercounted. And when you drive around these days, and I'm sure everybody is feeling that, you know, how all that works together is going to be really interesting as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Oh, Brian?
Just a quick thought. You know, I go back to the TPA's Economic Development Forum and the comments from Rafael Clemente. He was the individual who also led our walking tour some time ago, and he alluded to the fact that the model sometimes doesn't take into account very well pedestrian-based activity. You use some case studies from specifically one company where 50% of the downtown jobs at a site with 100 employees at an office are walking, biking, or taking transit to work. So do you anticipate the SERPM 9 model doing a better job of that in the development? Because I know it's a regional model. What's
Right.
the discussion look like currently?
Oh, Andrew, do you want to? What I'll say is we're working on it. Obviously, it is a model that was originally designed to model traffic volumes, so it is something that we're working to get closer towards. I don't know, Andrew, if you have any more want to add. No, not really. I know that our regions in the SERPM model, they're trying to put in the other types of modes and have, you know, more accurate and more effective modeling for that. The TPA is going to do some type of like there will be some type of demand analysis on pedestrian bicycle facilities and activity levels and for transit as well. So all modes. If it's going to be through SERPM, I guess we'll have to see how well that's turning out. But we do plan on doing a demand analysis.
Right. It seems like similarly to population adjustment that might be necessary. There might need to be some additional factors that are played into that as well. Thank you.
Good point. Okay, so on to the last item, administrative items. Items 4A and B are informational. There's no staff presentation unless requested by committee member. Is there any public comments on the informational items, Margie?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Great. It's 10:38. Our next Vision Zero Advisory Committee meeting is going to be on May 5th. And we're adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone.